coaches had about, what should be in our program, how many different levels, and what ages, so all kinds of questions around structure. That's really easy. I mean, you can research that and come up and make your own structure. That's really easy. In terms of content, now that we've been into it for a bunch of years, there's a lot of material out there. At Midtown, one of the best things I did, I think, was bring Mike Barrow on board to help us develop our program there. So we were kind of ahead of the wave a little bit. And it was a lot about the structure and the content. But where we struggle all the time, it's ongoing. Even though we've been working with the structure and content for a long time, it's always about the delivery. It's always about the delivery. I do presentations where I talk about those three things. But today it's not just about the delivery, but I mentioned delivery up front because that's the most important thing if we're going to talk about an effective practice. Okay? It's not about what we do, it's really about how we do it. Okay? And it's not really about the forehands and backhands, it's really about the kids. What's interesting and what's exciting for me at this stage of my career is that there's so much to learn about youth tennis. There's so much to learn. Like, we have hardly scratched the surface. So it's exciting to think that over the next 3, 4, 5 years, I'm probably going to double my knowledge about 10 under tennis because all the research that's being done and all the things that are happening in terms of how children learn. But one thing we're all kind of sure of, at least the people that really spend their life in this, is that it's not so much about what we deliver, it's what the children receive. So Wayne Elberton, a friend of mine, he sent a quote, but he couldn't credit anybody with it. He just sent it to me, and he said, it was kind of cute. He says, "I don't remember much of what I was taught, but I remember a lot of what I learned." So if we kind of flip that around, if we want to have an effective practice, all we have to do is create a learning environment. Now, it sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? But it's not so much teaching, it's more about getting kids together to do activities in which they learn. I always use the same example because it's so powerful. It's about how does the child learn to walk. They don't take walking lessons. It's done by what we call in French façonnage, or in English shaping. And it all starts out with, first thing you got to do is acquire balance so they can stand. But what happens when they stand? They crash and burn. So their first experience learning to walk is absolute failure because every child, the first time they let go of that hand or that coffee table, they crash and burn. So it all starts in failure. But it is the concept that the child acquires over time by trying things. All we have to do is control the environment. If we control the environment, then the children are going to learn. They're going to learn at different rates, they're going to learn different ways, they're going to experience things, and that's really what this is all about. So in the notes, I'm not sure what was included. There's a little preamble to it. You have something that says increase your understanding of the elements. You have something like that? Okay. That's really what you want to do, is you want to find a way. You're all in business in one way or the other. You want to create for your club or your place of business, you want to set yourself apart a little bit. So how you do that is through differentiation. And it's always about meeting and exceeding the expectations of those that come to you. And those that come to you are, of course, the children, but the families and the parents are equally important, if not more important. So when you deliver a program, you're looking to at least meet the expectations and hopefully exceed. Because any business is successful if we have a retention strategy to it. So to be able to retain and keep kids in the program, we have to do that. So one of the biggest retention strategies, and you heard Kirk this morning introduce it, is this notion of play. So we when I say we, because I influence a number of clubs that, one of the biggest things that's changing is this idea that we're doing less in terms of the formality of instruction, and we're trying to build more into the play side of it. At our club, every session that I do, and I teach Monday through Thursday from 4 to 6:30, every session is a play day. Not for the 2.5 hours, but there's at least 30 minutes of that session, at least 30, that is the concept of a play day. So I tie in, and years ago that didn't exist for me. I've changed. I've learned that the most important thing is that the kids get fired up about the concept of playing. So as we go through, you know, we generally like to try to model after things, and I'm embarrassed sometimes when I say people want to come and visit, because I say, man, I'm still in the experimental phase here with my club. We're celebrating our 2-year anniversary next month, and we're still experimenting. We're making lots of mistakes. But I got to try to find the right formula for that environment. It's different than Midtown. Midtown, like Bill said, we had 100, 600 kids in the program, all kinds of critical mass, all kinds of things you could do. There were limitations to it, but my little club right now, we have 83 kids in our program. It's not a lot, okay? But it's huge because we're only 2 years into it, and these kids are getting into a lot of play stuff, so I'm really proud. Our goal is to get 120 kids, and we'll get there hopefully in another year. So, but it's different. So I have to look at it as different than the other programs that I've run. So I have to adapt and make sure that I am, again, meeting and exceeding expectations for the various families. So I put down, and I try to limit. I used to put long lists, and you're going to say, my God, that's 5. That's still longer than it should be. I probably should have only had 3 points down. But when you look at just the points of an effective practice, can anybody give me an example of what I mean in the first one? Okay, they're creating that environment where we want the kids to run to get there and to not want to leave when the time is up. What are some of the important keys to creating that environment? Okay, you guys are also shy, it's unbelievable. Okay, Michelle did it through her own activity. Kurt alluded to it this morning. It's this idea of movement. Everything is the foundation of movement. So one thing I'm trying to throw out, and it happened to me this week, I looked over and saw a couple of the coaches and they had a static environment. So as much as possible, the whole notion of movement. If you're going to create something, it's got to be orchestrated and organized chaos, but it's got to have that chaotic feel to it for the kid. It's got to be moving. There's got to be a dynamic side to it. I'd much rather the kid be moving and fail than be static and be successful. I'll repeat, I want the kid to be moving and fail rather than being static and successful. It doesn't mean we don't progress from static to dynamic. It's part of the foundations of progression. But we got to keep the kids moving. So movement's there, okay? Movement triggers joy, okay? All the time when I get the kids going, and the smiles come out on their faces, but there has to be a joy. If we want to get the kids back, there's got to be a joy. So you got to find ways to make sure that it's joyful. And if you're a joyful person, you're having fun, you can see why we want our children, if possible, but we'd like to be able to clone Michelle and have Michelle in our program for any of our 3-year-olds, because you can see the joy that she demonstrated in terms of the way she functioned out there. What else do we do to capture the heart and soul of the kids? Yes? Okay, yeah, the creativity, the allowance of the child to use their own creative ways of solving or coming up with solutions to the situation. So permitting that, okay? When the child goes off the wall and does something very different than what you expected, instead of trying to bring them back into the fold, celebrate, okay? Honor their creative activity and find a way to bring them back in after if that's what you want to really achieve. But yes, we want the kids to show some creative skill. What else? There's got to be other things that contribute to that. I hate it when I have to give the